Go, 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 go!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution to help you, my friends, watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on any damn device you choose. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and that was not me as Godzilla. That was ostensibly either a stuntman or what's his friggin' name from One Crazy Summer. Bobcat Goldthwait, that's who it was, stomping on a little town. I had totally forgotten about that scene, and I watched the hell out of that movie when I was in second grade because it was on HBO all the time, but they played it at the beginning at the Alamo Drafthouse pre-show, and instantly I knew this is what I wanted to share with our audience. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing well, Brian. Godzilla mania is sweeping the nation, but not everyone loves it.
Yeah, well, it's, look, not everyone loves the flu. That doesn't stop the flu from spreading as well.
That's true. It is a pandemic. Another carrier of a pandemic of knowledge and fun is Justin Robert Young, who's joining us on this episode of Cordkillers.
As we finally add the standing upright portion of this beard escalation for everybody on the show. No beard, mid-beard, full beard.
Yeah,
The evolution of
you say
beard,
no
like-
beard. I'd like to think like early puberty of a beard, like just getting ready to, you're already shaking your head. I'm nothing.
It's Australopithecus beard.
All right.
Brian,
I feel like,
if you have to explain the beard, then you've already lost them.
all right, fine. I say we just move straight into our primary targets.
Do it. Our primary target today are rumors from Variety that their sources report Google's YouTube will be given $1 billion by their daddy Google to buy Twitch. Now, the Wall Street Journal says this is early discussions. The deal isn't imminent, but Variety says that it is imminent and it could be announced anytime. So who knows? But what do you guys think? Twitch owned by YouTube, match made in heaven or the cloud?
I mean, okay, a couple different things. First of all, I remember one of the first tweets I saw after this, as Twitter is wont to do, give you a snapshot of what everyone is thinking. I remember Scott Johnson saying, how on earth did Beats sell to Apple for $3 billion and Twitch will only sell for $1 billion? And I saw both my answer and Justin's. I'll toss to Justin's in just a second. But my answer was, for me, it was purely based on brand value alone. You could go down the street and 1 in 3 people will know what Beats is. I would be shocked if 1 in 20 people knew what Twitch.tv is, even though, you know, or Justin TV, a subsidiary of Twitch. What's your gut say about this, Justin? Is $1 billion a fair price? Is this paying too much or too little?
Well, I mean, this actually reminds me of Disney buying Maker Studios a couple weeks ago, where the question isn't necessarily does it make sense for whatever money, but really the larger question of, is this worth any money and is Twitch making money? The bigger thing, whether this goes through or not, is live streaming a money-making venture? We've seen Twitch finally catch an element of mainstream adoption by honing down on focusing on video game Let's Plays and have had great adoption rates. But by way of the bandwidth, does Twitch make money by itself as a long-term proposition if it isn't bundled up to the teat of Google's bandwidth?
And I should point out that my wife works at YouTube Space LA, which is involved in this in some way, I suppose. But remember that Susan Wojcicki just took over YouTube. She was the person who was in charge of AdSense. Twitch sells ads. They're one of the few people who are actually like selling ads into live streams. And they have a fairly well-developed subscription service at $8.99 a month to get rid of ads and to share money with the folks who make the content. So to me, this really addresses a gap in YouTube. They suck at live. They've removed all their live links, even though they still have youtube.com/live. They're looking for a way to expand their ad presence on video. And Twitch is now what? 1.35% of all peak downloads in North America during the evenings and getting bigger all the time. The one thing I've read about Twitch is they're worried about capacity. They have the engineers to handle it, but just getting the servers will no longer a problem if you join the YouTube family.
Well, and part of me wonders, like, are they buying the technology behind Twitch? Because one of the things that happened, full disclosure, on this show, when we first started, we used to broadcast at justin.tv/scamscobrian, Justin TV, essentially the same company as Twitch. The reason we left and went to Daily Motion was because they restructured all of their servers, and all of a sudden there was this intolerable lag. We're a show that values the feedback from the folks in the chat room, and a chat lag of 16 to 24 seconds is just untenable. Now, in Twitch TV, same thing. You know, when you're responding to people in the chat room, you're doing a live Twitch game where you're running around doing a first-person shooter, and the comments are from a kill that happened, 8 rounds ago or whatever. That seems to me like a problem. And this is entirely me projecting into the situation, but is it possible that bringing in the resources of a YouTube, Google environment could possibly make them refocus on the lower latency opportunities that are available? Or maybe that's just a pipe dream. What do you say, Justin?
I think that may or may not be a major issue for them. And by issue, I mean priority. That might not be an element that they want to focus on. I do think a partnership like this can't help but give them more resources to focus on the product. I mean, this kind of reminds me that, all of this has happened before and it will happen again. Google was a company that really couldn't get into video, so they bought YouTube. YouTube is a company that really can't crack live no matter how hard they try. So why not buy the best, most fully developed live streaming service? The question for me, again, is whether or not that is, for YouTube, that's just going to be a way to complete their portfolio, or is live streaming really something that can make money going forward beyond what Tom said? And this might just be all that Google wants out of it: more real estate to serve more ads.
A little nodule on that analysis too is esports. It's a total guess how much money esports is going to make. Will it continue to grow? Will it flatten out? And this puts YouTube into the esports race as well, because Twitch is the platform. They're the ESPN of esports right now. And so that I think it's probably a good bet, Justin, that YouTube is looking at this saying, this could grow in a lot of different ways, which means it's probably going to grow. So it's worth one Instagram for us. As a comparison, our next story, DirecTV is, and not a rumor, is actually going to pay $48.5 billion or get $48.5 billion from AT&T.
Well, and before we do, we should go ahead and point out that that it is rumored that Twitch is bigger than HBO Go, according to Sandvine's traffic data. Is this right, Tom?
Yeah, that honestly, I feel like that number gets hyped a little much. It's a nice marker to know how big Twitch is. If you're like, oh, the amount of bandwidth that a Twitch video streaming takes up during the peak time, which is the evenings in North America, is a little bigger than HBO Go. That's great. Some people take that into like, oh my God, it's bigger than HBO Go. Well, remember, HBO Go is only available for subscribers and those who they give their passwords to. And then most people who subscribe to HBO watch HBO on television, not on the internet. So it's not like Netflix where it's the only way to get it is on the internet.
Right. Well, it's important.
And just
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian. But before we go, just to coda your initial point, in terms of the Beats sale versus this, Beats sells luxury goods. They build them, they design them, they sell them. That is a business model that has worked for many, 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 many years. The business model for Twitch, as yet unproven, and I think that's where the $2 billion price cap comes in.
Also, neither of those things are true. Apple has not admitted that they're buying Beats. We haven't heard a peep out of that. You've got two conflicting stories from the Wall Street Journal and Variety, whether this actual Twitch YouTube acquisition is going to happen, but our secondary target is a fact.
We should move on to that then.
This is going to happen if regulators approve, but AT&T says hopefully in 12 months or so, they will have paid $48.5 billion as a combination of cash and stock, and then take on the DirecTV debt, so bringing up the purchase price to about $67.1 billion in order to acquire DirecTV, the satellite TV service here in the United States and large parts of Latin America as well, to add to the AT&T portfolio, which does include a TV service on their Uverse platform, but they've only got 5.7 million subscribers there. It's not that big.
You know, I really don't know how to feel about any of this. It's like, on the one hand, I'm like, what does it matter? Instead of a triopoly, we have a duopoly. We're all screwed no matter what anyway. And another part of me wants to say, well, at least it's good that we have consolidated powers in a completely separate format than fiber optics. It's like, even though it's more inefficient to send a signal, 3 times as far to bounce it off the sky, at least it's another competitor. I don't know where. Have you thought about this, Justin? Do you have an opinion one way or the other? Because I'm totally cynical and feel like we're just screwed no matter what.
This reminds me of consolidation of businesses that don't have exactly rosy futures. The future of satellite-based delivery for entertainment content is and has been dicey for the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, dating back to the satellite radio merger. This is certainly a sign that DirecTV was looking for a way out. AT&T is looking to staple something to themselves to prolong their longevity as cellular subscribers decline, as cable subscribers decline. They need to have flexibility to go in a different direction. But to me, this seems like 2 dinosaurs in a 3-legged race into a tar pit.
I mean, I guess that's the one thing, and I know it's never popular to be the guy that's okay with consolidation and getting closer to a monopoly or whatever, but I think that's part of the reason that in my heart, I'm not angry about this. I feel like it doesn't matter. I feel like, I think you nailed it, man. I think this is what happens right before the category folds, is the last few remaining cells all team up to try to survive a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, I mean... Sorry.
Justin.
I mean, go ahead and dial up now. That's what I call hyperbole from back in the late 90s when we were freaking out about AOL and Time Warner and talking about how they were going to completely reshape how we access the internet and it was going to be the end of days. And that didn't necessarily turn out so bad.
On the other hand, if that's the case, why the crap would they spend money buying DirecTV, right? I mean, the best analysis that I've read so far is that what AT&T wants out of this is cash flow. DirecTV has some debt, but they have a good $2.6 billion in cash flow. And so this is going to help their bottom line and increase their dividends. It's a purely financial hacking move that makes sense in these other ways, in that they don't really have a strong video play yet. DirecTV doesn't cause any regulatory concerns in other arenas because they don't do phone, they don't do internet. And what troubles me about it, if anything does, is the fact that AT&T is now going to have a video service. Randall Stevenson, CEO of AT&T, was saying today that they are going to come out with an internet TV service 12 to 18 months after this deal closes.
Wait, so, is this an over-the-top service like we've been projecting for a while?
Exactly. Now, the way they could do that is they'll say, oh, well, DirecTV has all these relationships, so we can use that leverage to make like an online version of DirecTV, which sounds great until you remember that AT&T is one of these foot-dragging ISPs who's trying to figure out how to charge people for video coming into their service. And it just makes you feel icky again, like, oh, but they're going to start trying to charge Netflix and YouTube to access AT&T while they're competing with them with their own online version of DirecTV eventually.
Man, it's so weird because I feel like I need to recuse myself from any AT&T discussions, because while you are describing the exact relationship that everyone should have for AT&T, after all, they have a 100-plus-year history of screwing over everyone in the middle, like the mere fact that AT&T, I happen to be in one of the few markets where AT&T has a legit terrifying reason to be proactive about giving good service. Google Fiber has not come to Austin yet, but preemptively they're offering the best service by a factor of of 10-fold, 20-fold over most of the country, and that they're offering it in greater the service area of Google Fiber. I am very aware that all of this is a preemptive, defensive mood or move, but it's like it's tough because it leads me to unfairly want to give AT&T the benefit of the doubt when I really shouldn't. They're just all the same assholes.
You just happen to be the prettiest girlfriend of AT&T.
I am. I'm still turned off.
You. We the rest of us. Listen, we have maybe hair growing where we shouldn't. We bit our lips. Like it's going like it's not
it's herpes, Justin. I didn't bite my lips.
One quick thought. Apparently, an element that could hinge this deal is the NFL Sunday Ticket, and that tells you what that means to DirecTV that AT&T would not find them to be an acquirable property. And like you said, Tom, this is all about their cash flow. The cash flow would not be there if it's not for the exclusivity on American football, which really, I mean, like when a sports entertainment package can hinge a deal like that, it really shows you what kind of leverage they have.
Yeah, it's a really interesting clause that if DirecTV does not get a renewal of NFL Sunday Ticket after the 2015 season, AT&T can back out without a penalty. They won't have to. They can still decide to acquire DirecTV anyway, and there's no other change to the deal. But there's an escape clause there to like, yeah, if you guys don't get DirecTV, if you don't get the NFL Sunday Ticket renewed, we're not so sure we want you anymore.
Which by the way, kind of derails like my big new media prediction, which I have had for years, and that is that Microsoft was going to get NFL Sunday Ticket. I thought they were going to go super hard to beef up their original content, and I don't think that's going to happen at this point. If AT&T and DirecTV, this is like the element to that deal that needs to happen. Although maybe not a super exclusive version, and we kind of get a fragmentation of that. But I think it stays with DirecTV and now AT&T. Considering the merger.
I'll tell you what, man, I think you really nailed it, Tom, when you were talking about the possibility of an over-the-top service. An over-the-top cable service would fundamentally transform things for me. I'm not going to say whose HBO Go password I'm using, but they're a DirecTV subscriber, and it's every time I see that DirecTV logo, I just think, how dumb that I would have to get a stupid saucer to point into space in order to get this legitimate content traditionally. And it's like, how quickly can we get past that? It's all bits, and it all should just flow over. It shouldn't matter, man. It should be format agnostic.
And I also really don't like the idea that the ISPs are the ones who seem like they're the only ones who will be able to make this happen. Right?
Yeah,
the same people that give me the internet are also going to give me the over-the-internet television service, which winds us up in exactly the same position we are now. Right?
A very brief side jag. I don't want to take more than 15 seconds on this, but we were talking, I believe it was yesterday on the Weird Things podcast, about the possibility of there being kind of a second wave mesh network independent movement. Are you optimistic about that happening, Tom?
I get less optimistic about it the more I talk to people in networking who are like, it's really great and it can do a lot of things, but it's really bad for what you're talking about. Like high bandwidth, latency sensitive, packets like video. They're like, it's going to take a lot of technology development before that becomes a real viable way. That said, I know that people entrenched in an industry, whether they have any kind of preference for something or not, tend to have a hard time seeing anything happen without the way they've always done it, right?
Right.
So I'm still hopeful that somebody will push that mesh networking out there and figure out a better way. Maybe there'll even be like mesh networking to fiber backhaul that gets rid of a lot of that latency. And there's some kind of direct unholy alliance between the tier one providers who we never hear about and the meshers out on the edge. That would be amazing. I am 100% confident that no matter what happens, the internet routes around whatever people throw in.
Man, I hope so. And for everyone at home, read the Master Switch if you want some stark insight into all of this stuff. But you know what you should do before that is you should thank the folks who make our little show possible. I was talking to our boss the other day.
Oh yeah, I was talking to one of our bosses today too.
We say bosses. How many bosses can we have? It's not like, what is this, middle management hell?
I think it's technically thousands, right?
I don't know, 1,794, Tom. That's a lot of bosses telling us what
thousands.
To do.
Literally.
Yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, we are independently supported thanks to our friends like you over at patreon.com/Cordkillers. 1,794 of you guys have decided that our nonsense is worth a few pennies here or there, and we thank every single one of you guys. We try to give you guys some extra bonuses. We recorded a State of the Cordkillers address last week or the week before where we sent out a little bonus. Tom recorded a video review for some extra stuff. You get a little bit of inside stuff. We send out an email letting you know what we're up to ahead of everyone else. And we got some emails. I didn't get the chance to put all of them in the doc, Tom, but we'll be talking about some of those as we get to feedback later on.
Yeah, the idea, folks, if you find value in the show and you want to give a little value back to keep it going, go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and help us out. Let's do some signals intelligence for the people.
Let's freebase that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get meshy with it.
Just take that FCC report and mainline it. The FCC issued an average report. I'm sorry, it was kind of an average report.
I mean, it wasn't their best.
It's not the best.
It wasn't their best.
It's average.
It's all right.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
great.
good. It's
great.
good. It's a good report.
It's good.
It's a good report.
There's
It's great.
nothing- I'm not criticizing the report, but it was on the average cable prices in the United States for the year ending January 1st, 2013. Here's what they found. Basic cable, and by the way, satellite providers not in here, but Fios and Uverse are. So that's how they define cable for the purposes of the report. Basic cable prices increased 6.5% in the period, 4 times the rate of inflation, which was 1.6% in that period. Expanded basic, which is basically like, oh, instead of just the broadcast and community access channels, you get the most popular channels too. That increased 5.1%, so a little slower rate, but still a much bigger multiple of inflation. Equipment rental for basic expanded 4.4%, and for expanded basic 4.2%. That's your cable box. And expanded basic, this is really interesting, rose 4.6%, where the FCC called it a non-competitive market, and rose 5.8% where there was competition. Now you may think, well, that's weird. Why did it rise more where there was competition? You're considered a non-competitive market until you apply to become one as the incumbent cable operator. And when you apply to become one, price controls disappear. So you get to raise the prices as often as you want. So you can say, hey, DirecTV exists. I want to be a competitive market. And the FCC goes, all right, here you go. And then you get to raise the prices as often as you want.
Ah, man. So it sounds like, let me just run this. There's a couple of these stories. We've talked about them before.
Brian, put this in English for me, because I don't understand these numbers.
Okay. There's a couple stories we've talked about from time to time. Previous to this, we've talked about in general, it's like a perennial on the show, is subscriptions be going down. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right? That's the way. Subscriptions be going down. And there's a separate story, this story that just happened, which, if I understand correct, is prices be going up.
Sure.
So prices be going up and their subscriptions be going down. What do you suppose is going on, Justin?
We be getting screwed. I mean,
well put, sir.
There's a couple elements to this that I think we do need to keep in mind. Rights agreements have continued to go up while subscribers have fallen. So there is an increased need for how much cable operators are paying for content. But still, I mean, this is way ahead of inflation. And I don't know the numbers well enough to just say you guys are just profit taking skis balls. But
that won't stop you from saying
does anything to help them be better at customer service, for which they are legitimately and best of breed terrible.
Yeah, and again, I keep going back to, and I don't know how much of this is projection, because I've already stated clearly, like, I want a lightning bolt to hit the whole stupid industry and for everything to shatter and for us to all rebuild something better from the pieces. So it's difficult for me to hear this and not want to project my own narrative onto it. But this really does seem to be the behavior you would expect from a dying industry, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, not just dying, but also a monopoly industry, right? Like, I don't get away with this if I'm a dying industry with competition. I'm T-Mobile in that situation, and I'm cutting prices as often as I can. But even in these so-called competitive markets where you can say, oh, there's a video in the sky, I'm competitive, and you've got no real competition, you can just keep raising prices as long as you want. Also, the broadcasters, as Justin pointed out, keep raising the price of carriage as their ad rate margins get squeezed, and they need to make up that money somewhere else. So it does make it a little more expensive and gives you an excuse. But yeah, when it's rising at 4 times the rate of inflation for the cheapest version, that's ridiculous.
Well, and plus also, I mean, it's almost not to be expected, because the whole reason that Intel wasn't able to crack this and all these other companies is it's not that the content providers don't want to get paid. It's that the content owners, the people who have the licenses, it's these intractable agreements that have so many carve-outs that make it impossible. Last week we were talking about how Nielsen can't even track how many people are watching things because there's too many restrictions on what actors can appear on what platform and what music is licensed for what rights and what ads can appear in what division, to where we can't get all on the same page with this. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know that it's ever going to get any better. I feel like the numbers for cable will continue to reduce. And yet, I believe year after year, even 5 years from now, I think the prices for cable will continue to go up and up and up. I think 5 years from now, we're looking at a $350 per month cable bill that's being paid by 20 people in Days Inn somewhere, and that everyone else is just, figuring something else out.
Well, but also the big shoe that is yet to drop is that as the content holders continue to raise their carriage fees, at some point, where does that dam break in terms of the cable providers being able to pay it? And some of these content providers say, well, hey, listen, you still pay us X, but now we get to have more of a direct relationship with the people that want us the most. And at that point, we start to look at uncoupling happening outside of the cable providers, as opposed to what we traditionally talk about, the quest for unbundling while paying the cable providers, what we want. I
mean, truthfully, I was being a bit hyperbolic before. I actually feel like what'll happen is the traditional home model will continue to increase. I think that this story is going to be a perennial. I think that the number of total subscribers is going to go down. But I think, as I've predicted before, the fig leaf opening is going to get wider and wider, where the over-the-top version of it, where it's like, yeah, whatever, you have cable. Here's a password. Here's a login. Don't expect us to actually deliver anything to you. You can now go to adultswim.com and watch all the stuff you want. I feel like that segment is going to grow to fill the gap in between, because traditionally you don't see consolidation, you see constant divergence. And I think this is an indication of the folks who want stuff streamed to their big television and the channel-like experience will continue to get it. They're just going to pay more and more and more year after year as there are fewer and fewer of them.
Well, but the other side of that is AT&T owning DirecTV and Comcast Time Warner combo now has the leverage with the content providers to say, really, you're only going to make deals with us for online versions of your shows. And we don't see Comcast and DirecTV disappear. Instead, we see them become the only way to get live linear programming over the internet.
I mean, do you want live linear programming? I can't. And again, sports notwithstanding, what do you want live and linear?
Forget I said live linear programming. The only way to get your programming over the internet is to subscribe to DirecTV and Comcast.
That's hard for me to believe, just because so many of the content owners now, your what is it? Your Cartoon Networks or whatever, your AMCs, they know, and they've indicated that they understand that they have the content, they own the content, they have the value. And right now we're getting those deals where they're making carve-outs for their ability to release stuff online independently, as long as it's behind the paywall. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to get screwed by that, because those deals have been being made for the last 2 years or so, I would imagine.
Those deals don't show any crack in the wall of Comcast and DirecTV and those types of providers, in my opinion, because all they say is you have to make sure somebody's still paying us to allow someone to watch it. And then Comcast doesn't care where you watch it, because they're getting paid, right? They're making their money. And that's all that's about.
Right. Well,
and everything that's not involving paying a cable company is, well, now it's 8 days later. Well, now it's 28 days later. Well, now you can't get it.
See, this is that fig leaf opening. So here's what I think happens. And again, this is all rampant speculation, so discount all of it. But AT&T buys DirecTV. They create an over-the-top service for $15 where you can now cable authenticate to any service or whatever. Comcast starts to lose just a tiny bit of market share to AT&T DirecTV because they have this over-the-top service, so they respond with their own $15 service. Only it's $17 because they're assholes. And then that continues. I don't see that middle space. I don't see that fig leaf element going away at all.
What I don't, you're just talking about it being cheap then?
Yeah. The low cost, zero deliverable middleman interface.
They won't make it cheaper, for the same reason that they're not slowing the rate of increase of these prices. These are the folks who have a lockdown on the content. They will maintain that lockdown as long as they possibly can. And it looks like right now they're preventing your Sonys, your Apples, your Intels from getting into the game. And so they're going to be the only game in town for getting that programming out onto the internet, and they'll be able to charge, oh, sure, maybe they'll charge $50 instead of $65 for the expanded basic package on the internet, but they aren't going to make it cheap.
No, I think they will. I don't see any way. I think the current system is utterly untenable. I think the fact that they're going even more expensive makes it more ridiculous, and especially here's the wild card in all this. Here's the trump card is piracy. Like there is a certain amount when you cross that border, the entire universe turns against you and everyone just takes it for free. HBO has already seen that. They've created this giant black market by pricing their stuff intentionally too high to make it a prestige item. You can do that if you're HBO and you genuinely don't care and you're riding high on the notoriety of being the most pirated shows out there. You can't do that if you're a mainstream provider and all of a sudden everyone just takes all that stuff for free.
I don't know, man. If that was going to happen, I think we'd already see it happening. I've always been of the opinion that piracy is a niche audience.
I agree. I don't know. I don't know how much piracy necessarily moves the needle, but I do agree with Brian that like their changes have to come at some point. If even just because the fewer players there are, the more there is an opening for challenges from other entrenched interests that, want to challenge some of these rules and want to test market invulnerabilities, which have to occur if there are fewer players.
But I think the only way that happens is from outside of these cable companies. These cable companies are just going to take the same price structure right to the internet.
Yeah, I could see that. And luckily there'll be enough fringe third-party providers, including my proposed virtual cable network that somebody's just going to, that has no actual deliverables.
The virtual cable networks can't get off the ground because they can't afford the programming because they can't show the bulk, right? They can't show the number of subscribers. But what's going to happen, I think, more likely, is that more and more content providers will appear outside that cable system. So you'll have more Netflixes making House of Cards sort of situations. At least that's my hope.
I hope so,
Or,
too.
I mean, if look at a company that has built a empire playing the super thin commodity market game like Amazon, and maybe at some point they want to get into it. Maybe at some point they want to start buying.
Amazon Prime is making originals.
I mean, yeah, they're in the content creation.
What if they wanted to get into over the top? I mean, like this is like they have made no secret about like that they buy things for 11 cents and sell them for 11 and a half.
Yeah,
like
right.
that's they're not like Apple.
Sometimes they do the opposite, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, shall we gear up?
I don't know, I guess.
Whatever, Dad.
Microsoft is changing their mind again for the Xbox One so that if you are a cord cutter, it becomes a viable box on its own, even if you're not a gamer. The idea is, A, they're dropping the price to $399 on June 9th because they're going to take the Kinect out. You don't have to get the Kinect anymore. So that's the same price as the PS4 without a camera, except it's an Xbox One without a camera. But the bigger news to Cordkiller folks is that you will no longer be required to have an Xbox Live Gold subscription in order to access most of the apps. That includes Netflix, that includes Vudu, that includes YouTube. You can just buy an Xbox One, in this case for $399, and you can watch all of those apps and stuff, and then the gaming is a bonus feature.
Man, I'm so bummed. You first, Justin. I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
So at some point, during every Microsoft announcement, they just say, also, opposite day happens 3 months from now, if not sooner. That seems to be the MO. How many Microsoft stories have we had where they've come out and made bold pronouncements and they have wrapped their shaft on the throne room floor 3 times to announce the big Microsoft move, and then 2 to 3 months later they've said, oh, sorry, no, we're doing the exact opposite.
Okay, now keep in mind, though, there could be one winner and one loser. There could be one idea that's right and one that is wrong, and we've seen the reverse. We've seen Apple wrap its staff and hold firm and then turn out to be 100% right. And we've seen Apple wrap its staff and then a year later say, like, congratulations, we've now announced that we'll do the opposite because we figured it out all totally on our own, that that's what we should do. I really cringe because I wanted Xbox One to be right. They came up with some really innovative ideas, and I don't believe it was I don't believe it was motivated by greed or the desire to screw things over. as Xbox One described their environment with the digital online sales, they wanted to do revolutionary things like let you buy a video game digitally and share it with something digitally. And the only way that that kind of thing was possible was with at the time, talking to the publishers, some kind of DRM scheme that made everybody happy. And instead, PS4 rang the Luddite bell and they won. They're like, go back to discs, used games, that kind of crap. And people are like, I fear your advancement. And then Xbox One was wrong again because they tried to pull an Apple and stick to their guns and say, no, you know what? You're going to fundamentally change the way you interact with your stuff. You don't need stupid remotes. Your hands are dumb. You're not, yes, you were born a primate, but you don't have to be a primate anymore. Use your voice, speak from your mind, and just tell your box what you want it to do. That'll be the way it goes. And now it's like, no, we don't like your cameras and your 21st century technology. And so now they're pulling that back, which cuts the nuts off because understand, even if nobody used the Kinect, the install base matters. I watched for 5 years as every new PC came with a DVD drive that nobody used for anything. And then one day, video game manufacturers looked up and said, oh, hey, there's 3 million installed DVD drives out there. We should use DVD and expand our content and create a more rich experience. I feel like we're all losing for the backpedaling that Xbox One has done. However, having said all of that, I think that letting people be cord cutters without having to get Xbox Gold is a brilliant, brilliant idea. It is the one reversal that I'm absolutely thrilled to see them do.
All right.
So
there.
I'll tell you at number one, I'm in love with discs, guy. The Luddite discs. I want more and more of him, just in general, not to comment on this story, but rather just in life. I have a hard time believing that the Xbox One is a cord cutter's device without gaming as a platform. It does not appeal to me. I have no interest in console gaming. I do not want to spend $400 on a device that essentially I can have the core functionality that I care about replicated on either a Chrome tab or a Apple TV or a Roku. Unless they really get into the original content game in a major way. And that was always my thought about something like NFL Sunday Ticket, that they would overspend in a market that will already be super rich, but they totally, hinge their wagon to something super crazy and exclusive to make spending, $400 seem rational to people. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, if this is a move to bring it more toward non-gamers, I really just don't know as a premise that it's going to work.
I don't think that's the only premise. Just to give some perspective on the changes in policy, too, don't forget that they said all of these things about doing things without discs at E3 under Don Matrick, who then shortly left to become CEO of Zynga, and then they changed their mind about all of these things that Brian was talking about from E3. Then, 3 months ago, they hired Phil Spencer to be head of Xbox, and Phil Spencer told Ars Technica that plans began when he joined the Xbox team 5 weeks ago to get rid of the Kinect as an option and to be able to use the apps without Xbox Live Gold. So these are changes in personnel. Whatever you think is the right move or the wrong move, that's what's causing these changes in this particular case. Probably the same thing in a lot of examples with Windows when you talk about Steve Sinofsky losing and them changing the tile interface, putting the start menu back, all that sort of thing. But also don't forget that the Xbox, I think, has a brilliant Trojan horse that works with the television. Even if it doesn't control your DVR, the fact that the TV is an app on your Xbox is so devilishly appealing that even though I like the PS4 more, I use the Xbox more because it's already there. And I agree with you, Justin, that this is not going to get a cord cutter to spend $400 to buy an Xbox One. But if the person was like, yeah, I like playing games, but the PS4 was cheaper and for $99 I can get a Roku and do all that sort of thing. It changes that kind of equation to be like, well, wait a minute. Now it's the same price as a PS4. It's got a better setup for videos. I don't have to pay Xbox Live Gold to access them. Now it becomes a little more compelling.
But how big is that audience? Like where is that market? Is it enough to really swing
it doesn't have
things
to be that
and
big.
make
This
a
is a
difference
marginal
for Xbox
thing,
One
right?
sales?
the amount of sales they lose by doing this just has to be like, it has to be made up by a few sales.
I mean, sure. Listen, I think in terms of what they want to do, I don't know enough about it to say whether it's a great or a terrible move. I think, I was joking about the opposite day thing, but I think it is very obvious that they are a company in flux from the top down. I mean, since those announcements, they have a new CEO who, by the way, we don't know whether or not wants to spin out Xbox as its own company and further away from the core of Microsoft. So it's obviously a company that is trying to find its footing. These don't seem like bad moves. I just don't know whether or not it is the cord cutter's delight, which I think at their initial announcement, I think they wanted it to be.
Oh, definitely back at E3, they were trying to pitch it as like, this is the future of television. And I think you're right there.
Well, and to me, the most depressing part about all that is that they took a marketing gamble that they could appeal to a cord cutter kind of audience. And it turns out that those numbers were not there for them, and it was insignificant. And instead, people just shouted, games, physical media, discs. And that's a real bummer for folks like you and me, who would like to think that we're part of a more savvy world where more people are into this kind of thing.
Yeah, you need a $50 Xbox that only can stream games from the cloud or something, that's more restricted. If you really want to get that base online, that's like, oh, this is now a cord cutting device.
You know what?
Right?
I was having this discussion with my 10-year-old, right? And she was saying exactly what you said, and I said, no. You know what you need? You need the power of your imagination. You need to get out there. You need to experience different worlds. Fantasy worlds, science fiction worlds. You need to experience the visions of people who can bring other realities right in front of you. You think you need some box in order to travel to distant lands? No. I said, in fact, someday I believe that two entrepreneurial individuals who have a passionate fan base will collect together a bunch of the greatest up-and-coming young storytellers who will collect a fantasy and science fiction anthology, the likes of which that you will never believe. And it'll have a kick-ass cover, and I bet one day that Tom Merritt will be reading it as I tell this exact story. And in fact, wait for it. Cut over to Tom Merritt. Cut over to Tom. Yep. Oh my God, Tom Merritt, you're reading it.
And it's box shaped, but it's not a box. You know what? The resolution is amazing. Battery life is almost endless. It's the Sword and Laser anthology edited by myself and Veronica Belmont with a lot of help. And we've got 20 authors from our audience who wrote 10 science fiction stories, 10 fantasy stories. The Sword and Laser anthology, available now in print and as bits, as little ebook bits.
Dude, I'll tell you what. Go ahead and give that cover the credit it deserves. Somebody either on the website or there. Holy crap, man! That looks
right?
so
Cliff Nielsen, man. Cliff Nielsen.
It looks amazing.
Outdid himself.
No, it's so great. Now I'm really glad that you and that panda hugger Belmont finally did something with your lives and put together this great platform.
I can't wait for her to get back from
authors.
China and cook for us.
By the way, so she is in China. I didn't know what the context of that photo was, and my daughter literally burst into jealous tears at the moment of seeing Veronica hugging a real life panda.
So did I. Man, I just started weeping.
Listen, if you want the feeling of hugging a real life panda without actually having to travel to China and hug a real life panda,
Which are gross.
go to swordandlaser.com/store and buy the anthology instead.
That's a good point.
Well
That's a
played.
good point. You make a lot of really good points here, Tom.
Thanks,
Hey, man, should we see what's under surveillance?
Yeah.
It's all about location.
Because you know what's under surveillance? Tumblr.
I thought you said Tom Blur, like he's a dude
No,
who's
Tumblr.
under surveillance.
You know,
that should be our new segment where we're like, this man, Larry Jones.
Tumblr is like what all the kids are doing for their bloggering and their socials.
right, now,
Tumblr.com.
Here's the thing. I read this article. This is about AMC debuting their new series, Halt and Catch Fire, on Tumblr. But the entire story, and even your presentation of it, is dripping with this weird sarcasm about how all the kids are on Tumblr. I can't tell if the point of this story is that Tumblr is now out and they're just now getting to it, or what.
I don't know. AMC put the first episode of *Halt and Catch Fire* on amctv.tumblr.com until May 31st. They also put it on amctv.com, by the way. But everybody is making a big deal at AMC about the fact that they put it on Tumblr because...
I mean, you know what this boils down to.
They put out a press release, probably, right?
No, no.
I mean, they did a thing.
Here's what
happened. And then they put out a press release, and now we're all like, what? Press releases?
No,
discs.
Here's the way this kind of thing goes down is there's an industry party. We'll say it's somewhere around December. There's a holiday party, and they're like, man, you got to meet Larry from Tumblr. Tumblr Larry. We call him Tumblin' Larry. What's up? This is AMC Brian.
It's me, Tumblin' Larry.
All right.
I work for Tumblr.
Oh, man, dude, we totally got to do a cross-promotion sometime. We did 5 shots together. We're like brothers now. What's going on? What do you got going on?
We've shared secrets that we've shared with not even our families. We need to collaborate. How about that Halt and Catch Fire show?
Oh, man, dude. Yeah, no, we got it. Wait, do you think that would be a match for Tumblr? What could you give to us?
I think it'd be great. Sorry, I have to go tumbling along.
I mean, this seems like a drunken conversation where it's like, yeah, man, we'll make it an exclusive and we'll totally blow up our PR firm and make a lot of noise about it.
Yeah, on the internets.
Right.
And *Halt and Catch Fire*, if anyone is still out there going, I would actually like to know what this is about, is set in the 80s. The idea is some Texas innovators decide to reverse engineer the IBM PC before the IBM PC was licensed for everybody to make compatible versions for. And *Halt and Catch Fire* refers to the idea of a mythical command line that you could put into a program that would make the computer stop and catch fire. It's just kind of a geeky thing.
Is this based on a real story?
It's based on a real time period. It is not based on any particular story. They're kind of like stealing elements of lots of legends of the time and putting them together in one little pastiche. But Steve Wozniak gave it a 10. He was like, and Steve Wozniak was like in the thick of all of this stuff at the time. And he's like, yeah, they did a great job.
All right, right on.
No, I think it's a very, very rich time period to do stuff. And for anybody who's enjoyed, some of those elements of Mad Men and I know The Americans is really popular, but those very specific moments in time when things kind of became something different. I think this is a great, rich area. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see if it's good.
By all accounts, it's going to be good. I just can't seem to get as excited as I feel I should be as someone who likes this kind of thing.
Mainly, I suspect because you understand, if the stated goal is to rip off and steal fire from Prometheus, pretty sure I know how this one ends, right?
Well, yeah, it is a journey story like Mad Men, right? But yeah, in the end, they get sued out of existence, so they fail, or IBM just says, "Now we're going to let everyone do this."
Right,
but
exactly.
Yeah,
it can end up good.
The pieces of whoever the main characters are can go in any number of different directions, because the point of what I would assume to be the meta story is that this is only the beginning of the personal computer revolution, and that its untold significance will be revealed to us as the seasons go forward.
Yeah, it's definitely trying to be a Mad Men for tech, saying, we're capturing the spirit of PC revolution as it happened with a mythical computer pioneer instead of a mythical ad agency.
I understand, especially as Mad Men moves into the early 70s, that you would want to distinguish if you're going for a period piece about the style and the vibe of the times. It seems like that's a good, 10-year gap to the early 80s or whatever. Part of the reason that Mad Men launched forward was not only the good writing and good acting and all that stuff, but also the mysterious attraction that we have for that age of our early grandparents and late parents and that kind of stuff. Yeah, like, do you think that there's enough hype in that area? Is there enough of an attraction to that zone that we want to go back and experience it?
Amongst geeks, there's a definite fetishization of that period of time. And pointing to the looks of that early PC era, boy, doesn't that bring back memories? I guess they're hoping that crowd and the crowd of technology lovers of the time who are just interested in it will be enough.
I mean, you're going to have far more sympathetic characters in general than you will necessarily on Mad Men, who we watch and kind of, more idolize as kind of fantasy, the reactions of Don Draper and Joan and stuff like that. But this, it's not without it. Listen, it's not like this is in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Early
like
80s.
Dallas, Texas in the 80s was without its excesses. You know, it was its own awash of shoulder pads and cocaine. Whether or not that will necessarily be this story, we certainly will be able to travel very easily story writing wise to places that we can say do not necessarily exist in our modern era.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the front lines then?
Yes, I'm ready. I was born for this.
Front lines.
60 seconds for each starting with several major advertisers, including MasterCard, Mondelez International, and Verizon Wireless in the past year have moved a portion of their money that they previously spent on television to online outlets, according to the Wall Street Journal. Time spent viewing online is rising, while network ratings are declining, especially true for young viewers. Nielsen says 30% of online video users are aged 18 to 34, compared to 21% of TV viewers. Brian, that solves our whole talk about who's going to go online.
Hells
because
yeah.
if the ad dollars go there, everybody follows.
This is a lagging indicator on the trend of what people actually care about. It's a leading indicator for where the industry is moving. The dollars move first. Everybody
Well
plays
put.
catch up afterwards. What say you, Justin?
Yes.
I mean, are you optimistic? You feel like this is the beginning of a golden age, or you feel like whatever, more noise?
No. I think that this is kind of very consistent with all the themes that we've been talking about over the past 45 minutes and the very premise of this show.
Yes, I agree. All right, man. Comcast's David Cohen told investors last week he expects usage-based billing to reach all Comcast customers within 5 years. Quote, when word got out and the inevitable outrage was expressed, Cohen said, I'm sorry, that was the end of the quote. He said, quote, Comcast has no ability for me to realize I have a touch screen and that when I touch a screen, it'll pan to a different thing. He says, quote, Comcast has no plans to announce, end quote, such a policy, and that his remarks were taken out of context. Also, those caps they're testing in some markets mean nothing, and besides, they probably will do unlimited plans. You believe in any of this, Tom? What is the story here?
This is such backpedaling, right? He goes to the investors. He's like, look, don't you worry about our margins. We're going to come up with all this usage-based billing. That's what you want to hear. Don't worry about it. And then it gets out to the public, and he's like, but no, we would never do that. We're not doing that. And even if we did do that, we'd have unlimited plans. So don't listen to that stuff. Out of context, I tell you.
Agreed. I guess we'll jump into the next one because our minute's
a trailer
up.
for Christopher Nolan's Interstellar came out last week before Godzilla, and a new trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy came out today. Which are you more excited about, Justin?
Excited. Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think will be a better movie. And this is picking between two options I am incredibly excited about, is probably Interstellar. Matthew McConaughey at his peak with Christopher Nolan doing Christopher Nolan things. This looks incredible.
What say you, Brian Brushwood?
I got to tell you, man, I agree with Justin. Interstellar will very likely be a fantastic movie, but I actually was less interested, less amazed, less into Interstellar after having watched that new trailer. That new trailer just looked like, I don't know, it looked like Man of Steel, cornfields in space. Who cares?
Now, that is taken from the first
I'm going to take an
15 minutes
extension
of the
on this. I
movie or
want
something?
to talk more about this, so keep talking. Go ahead.
All right, extension granted. That's taken from the first 15 minutes of the movie, right?
Which
Interstellar,
one?
right?
Interstellar.
The cornfields.
Yeah, so that's all just the beginning. And I think that this is a trailer that is you can only release if you're Christopher Nolan, because people are going to go see the movie anyway. And nobody outside of James Cameron can release movies that are like high-minded, quote unquote, and yet don't really need to spill a lot in the trailer. So I have more faith in it. But you look at the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, how can you not be so pumped for it? It looks so much fun.
Yeah, no. Guardians of the Galaxy trailer was great. In fact, I was seriously disappointed when they played the original Guardians of the Galaxy trailer in front of Godzilla where we saw it, which was the one I had already seen before, whereas the one that just got released online had a whole bunch of new angles and stuff that had me really excited about it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm more excited for both. I can't pick.
Chicken.
They're two different kinds of movies.
Boo! I'm moving on. Hey, man, shares of WWE Entertainment, which is redundant, fell Friday as investors began to worry about its new online subscription service and worries about a new deal with NBC Universal. The PAC keeps Monday Night Raw on USA. Oh, the Pact keeps Monday Night Raw on USA and Friday Night SmackDown on Sci-Fi, and even increases rights fees 70%. Investors just wanted a bigger increase. Long story short, it sounds like they had really pumped up expectations. They didn't meet there. There's some chatter about trying to remove Vince McMahon. I go to our wrestling expert, Justin Robert Young. What say you?
There's no chance in hell that Vince McMahon gets removed over his dead body. This is his only thing. All this is a smokescreen. What the investors are worried about are the numbers for the network. WWE was very consistent that the network was their future. The numbers have been soft for the investors' taste, and what they wanted was 100% increase. This is McMahon's fault because he said that he was going to double the rights, and they did not.
Pluto TV, which is that lean-back service that lets you watch videos from the internet, but that has a grid, kind of like a cable guide sort of thing, is adding a DVR features. Now, since the videos are not actually live, it's more like bookmarking, but it fits the metaphor of their interface to say DVR. Pluto TV is intriguing to me because I feel like that's something missing from online video right now, is the ability to just turn on a channel and see whatever's on.
Yeah, especially to come in like, midway or whatever. And we've talked before about how what Pluto TV is very similar to what we're trying to do at DiamondClub.tv, where we want to make it a destination where you could come and watch reruns that are offline streamed, but synchronously to everyone.
Have you seen this, Justin?
No, I have not. I am not very familiar with it, but listen, more ways that people can access stuff, I am always in favor of.
How about this, man? What about accessing other people's content that they paid for? Vudu is promoting
a feature.
OPC?
Yeah, you know me.
Vudu is promoting a feature of ultraviolet DRM where you could share your video library with up to 5 friends by sending them an email invite. The feature's found on Vudu under the title, quote, Share My Movies. Ultraviolet supports up to 3 simultaneous streams, so you can even watch movies at the same time. It's so weird to me to watch Ultraviolet promise in so many ways everything that we want, and yet to either have people not believe it, not take advantage of it, or in effect, not getting the benefit of what they're promising. Is what do you think the hiccup is on that, Tom, Justin?
It's not easy enough.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It's you have to go out of your way to do it. And it's really amazing that they've been able to make these deals. These guys all deserve raises and big fat steaks, that they can make these deals that open up the freedom for this kind of content. But yet it's still not easy. It's not easy to do.
Share My Movies is easy, though, so I'll give them kudos on this one.
Right on, man. I guess that's it for Frontlines. Is it time for us to move on
to the summer movie draft?
That one.
Go Godzilla.
Yeah. I was about to say nothing big happened, did it? Over the weekend?
93 million, just edging out Neighbors, which was in its second week. But 93 million on the first weekend.
Neighbors had a great hold. Those are 2 of the legitimate biggest surprises so far this year. The big question, to give context to everybody, Godzilla had the second highest opening of the summer. That's ahead of Spider-Man 2, but just below Captain America. We are really getting into some very interesting waters now, because the question is, does this bode well for other kind of reboots of familiar properties? Does this say this is good things for Planet of the Apes? Is this good news for Transformers? Godzilla was a fairly straight-ahead movie with a very plain but direct marketing message, and it was able to conquer the fears of everybody who had watched the 1998 film. So cheers to Godzilla, but I have no idea what this portends for some of the movies coming up.
I'll tell you what it does portend is a hell of a back in the game is the morning stream after draft day pulling in a measly $28 million considering the $10 purchase price. I was convinced that they were a little bit screwed. $35 is the low end for what they compared to the 43 that you paid for, DTNS paid for Captain America, and yet it performed almost as well opening weekend. Plus, they also paid what $17 for Neighbors, which performed almost as well. Like back to back, they got double complete prizes. Are you kidding me? I had written them off, but they're back in the game in a big way.
I still think that some of those early mistakes are going to ultimately be the difference between them and the ultimate winner. But I mean, huge plays. Neighbors was a great play, and this might be the summer of laughs. I always joke around that everybody who goes balls deep with the comedies, I always joke around and call them the summer of laughs. But it looks like when you have Neighbors making the kind of money that it made, 22 Jump Street might we projected to do even more than that. This could really be a blockbuster comedy summer once you factor in Million Ways to Die in the West.
Man,
this week coming out, Blended, Night Attack. You guys are your first movie.
This is our first dance, and I gotta say, I feel good about Blended. Only $13 we paid for it. I think it's safe to say that I would expect it to eventually gross over $100 million.
What's Blended about again?
It's Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler,
reminding you of those other better movies they did 10 years ago.
Exactly. But I tell you what, man, talk about a bankable star. Like somebody gave like 2 cents in a taco for freaking Jack and Jill, and it made $1 bazillion, even though it was terrible. So I'm cautiously optimistic in that regard. I'm fearful about X-Men Days of Future Past. I mean, I'm sorry, Tom, but I know that the hype engine is in full swing. But is there room after Godzilla? Do you think Godzilla is going to have a second monster weekend, or do you think it's just going to get knocked off?
What, Justin?
I think X-Men's going to make a ton of money. I think that it has tremendous brand value. I think Godzilla is a nice treat, and Godzilla's already won. I think people wanted to go see that. They were anxious to go see a big event kind of film, and we can talk about how good or not good it was after this. But I think X-Men is X-Men. If anything, the fact that they have not been able to be out there and do as much press for it because of the controversy surrounding Bryan Singer is the bigger legitimate box office ding for X-Men than Godzilla.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about more than anything. My sense is that Godzilla had a surprisingly good opening week, but it will probably drop off very quickly for 2 reasons. One is some of the people who did get excited and go see it are not talking as nicely about it now. And second of all, it's up against X-Men, and people are going to want to see X-Men. And so I think X-Men, because it's new, is going to really have a fine opening weekend. But like you say, Justin, I don't know if it'll be as good as it would have been, given the fact that it doesn't seem to have torpedoed people's excitement to see X-Men, but there are going to be people out there quietly not going to see it because of the controversy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else. Keep in mind, and for those of you who care more about the game aspect of things than the movie itself, you bought Captain America, which is the highest grossing movie so far, for $250 million. You bought it for 43 game dollars. There's a chance, hypothetical though it may be, that X-Men could do $250 million and match Captain America, if not usurp it, and you only paid $26. This thing is like half the value you paid for the other one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it doesn't have to do $250 million, but that would be amazing.
Well, that would certainly bode well for you.
No,
Sure.
I think this is why I think people, the totes out there in Vegas, I believe you are the odds-on favorite, Team DTNS, and it's because you guys had that double barrel shotgun of X-Men.
We are now, but How to Train Your Dragon, Transformers, those are going to change the entire outlook.
I'll tell you what, God's Money Bags has some problems between what they spent on. They wasted $36 on Rio 2 and Transcendence, both of which together combined made $130 million.
I'm just saying, I feel very much like Casey McKinnon holding Gravity, holding Captain America.
That's true. I can see that.
I mean, it's going to keep going, but X-Men, I think there's a legitimate chance X-Men could have a $100 million weekend.
Okay, close. Yeah, we'll have to see.
Keep in mind, also, it's a holiday weekend. Man, I guess, do we want to move forward to what's on our screens?
Sure.
All right, then let's go. What's on screen? Yeah.
I have been watching all the same things that I have been watching previously. It's just that they're winding up. So this lineup is going to change next week. But The Shield, I did watch episode 12. Warehouse 13 is having its season finale this week. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., amazing season finale. I cannot tell you how excited I am that series turned itself around. Short version is just start watching from the January episodes. There are a couple from the fall that you might want to pick up. Io9 has a good guide to that. Game of Thrones, Orphan Black, all kicking along just fine. And I did watch a few more regular shows off of Netflix, but I'm still in that season 2 thing.
Yeah, I jumped ahead. I've already watched all those season 2s, but I went over to my parents' place with the kids, and I was supposed to be talking with my parents, and instead I ended up just sitting on the couch and watching a bunch of season 4 regular shows with the kids. Holy crap, is that show wicked funny and definitely meant to someone over 30 years of age. But I was glad that my kids enjoyed sitting with me. I did go see Godzilla, and I've got stories about how I brought my 6-year-old instead of my 10-year-old. And we'll talk about that in spoiler in time, along with Game of Thrones and Cosmos. Justin, what about you?
So I've been on the road a lot, and I had missed 3 weeks of Game of Thrones, which was terrible and horrifying. And then I realized that it meant I got to watch 3 episodes of Game of Thrones in a row.
And?
So I did that, and it was the greatest experience of my life. And then I just got back literally like seconds before this show from Godzilla, and I have so many thoughts
on Godzilla. Yeah, so we'll talk about that here in a bit. And Tom, I asked if you minded us talking about it on spoiler in time, and you said that you feel like you're already ruined, spoiled beyond despair.
No, I said thanks for telling me you were going to do it on spoiler in time, so I didn't go see it this weekend.
Yeah,
but fine.
Right. But,
no, actually, Roger Chang spoiled it for me, and also kind of dissuaded Eileen by his opinion from going to see it. So yeah, I'm going to jump in as the hasn't seen it but has observations, third-party observer. I'll let you guys do the chatting though.
Right on, man. Shall
Shall we get some dispatches?
No. Yes. Wait.
They're from the front.
Oh, yes. Then yes.
All right.
Hey, man, our first letter comes from Ryu Planeswalker, who I'm almost certain is his real first name. He says, hello, Tom and Brian. I had a friend of mine, I had a friend ask me a question that I had no answer to and was hoping you guys could maybe steer me towards a proper answer for it. His question was, quote, does anyone know what's the maximum resolution possible to extract from a regular 35mm film like most movies and TV shows are shot on? Thanks in advance, Ryu Planeswalker. As I understand it, and I'm sure that Tom can fill me in on the technical details, 35mm film is a lot like, what is the bit rate of a vinyl LP? It's like it's infinite, but also so is the noise. Because it is an analog format, basically there's a precision of focus, but then there's also just how much noise gets entered at that small of an area. So you could theoretically upsample it infinitely, but at some level you get so much noise that the signal is totally lost and it becomes useless. Am I understanding that right, Tom?
Sure. Sounds right to me.
All right. What the reason?
I have no idea.
The reason, as I understand it, like this is the reason that when HDNet came out, when Mark Cuban was first putting HD content on DirecTV or whatever, that's why you would be able to get episodes of Knight Rider at HD, is because it was analog stuff. Just like, you're able to take analog versions, high quality bit rate samples from analog recordings of Miles Davis or whatever. It's just a matter, there is no one-to-one like this is the maximum resolution. There's just a point at which most people agree the signal to noise ratio breaks down and it's no longer worth doing it beyond that certain level.
Yeah, just doing a quick search. One result says that you're probably getting like the equivalent of a 24 megapixel camera out of a 35mm camera.
Okay.
But that's not disagreeing with anything you said. They're just saying kind of like roughly resolution in print is that way. But most of the stuff I'm finding involves 35mm stills rather than... Well,
and there's two things. The folks in the chat are saying that it's roughly about 4K, which I'll buy that as well. However, I'm also going to put the thought in your mind that also it will largely be found irrelevant as upscaling technologies get better and better, because pretty soon, we may say that, the noise gets too big once you go above 4K, but then that may be different 5 years from now, and it certainly will be different 10 years from now. And same thing, but we'll also be saying that about digital upscaling as well. There's this whole 7 to 10 year period when 1 megapixel cameras was all anyone had. There's a tremendous market opportunity for people who want to write good software to upsample those to higher resolutions, which I think we're just going to see more and more of.
Derek in St. Louis wrote in and said, I have DirecTV and my contract recently ended this month. My bill went up to $100 a month. I was originally at $72. This is after being a customer for 4 years. I called with the intention of negotiating a cheaper deal and possibly a Genie DVR. After speaking to customer retention, they offered me $15 off and a free Genie, but I had to sign a 2-year contract. I could not accept this offer. I asked to cancel. They put me on hold, came back to cancel my service as of Monday. So I am now officially a cord killer. I don't know how I'm going to watch the rest of Game of Thrones. My parents don't even have HBO for me to steal a login, but I have a wife and 2 kids who will now spend more time playing outside over the summer instead of in front of the TV. I do love sports, so it's likely just a summer break, but we'll see.
Man, I applaud you, Derek. That's exactly the experience I went through. I didn't mean to cut the cord when I did. I just got annoyed with the weird circular counteroffers they kept offering.
So if they gave him 15 off, that was what, 85 a month? So there was still a $13 raise over what he had before.
Wow. Yeah, that's still bogus. Hey, man, we got a message from Brian here that says, hey, guys, do yourself a favor now that we're close to the end of the run of Cosmos and rewatch both versions of the series, which I think is safe to say we will not. Alternating between the 2 series. So watch first the old, then one of the new, and so on. I've been doing that today, and it's amazing seeing not only the little nods to the original from the new one, but just how far science and technology have come in the decades since. For example, when they made the original, they hadn't even figured out what killed all the dinosaurs. They didn't even have a guess. Unless you've got the DVDs of the original series, he talks about how difficult it is to get a hold of them. They're theoretically supposed to be on YouTube from the National Science Foundation, but there's copyright bots that are blocking it. He says, one thing that I noticed was that there wasn't nearly as much reenactment in the original as I thought. So far, the longest amount that's been seen in any of the episodes I've rewatched has been about 3 minutes, which is about what I remember. And I think that's part of why the cartoon stuck out in our minds as being, different from the original.
That's a cool experiment. I wish I had time to do it. And you don't think about things like the theory of the dinosaurs and the meteor not even being proposed at that time, or certainly not accepted.
There was that one viewer who recommended that I listen to Star Talk, where he interviewed one of the writers, and that was something they talked about. That was a deliberate decision back in the early 1980s, late 1970s, where they were like, there was a lot of stuff that was fringy, that looked like it was right, but they didn't want the show to be dated. They decided to err on the side of safety. So they, even though I believe there were elements, because I remember definitely in 1982 when I watched V, they loudly pronounced that an asteroid had wiped out the dinosaurs. So certainly that science was on the fringes at that point, but they decided to hold back on it for Cosmos.
And then our last email comes from Wes, who says, the buffet example was BS. You aren't paying extra for food you don't eat. The way you guys describe it, functionally, you want to go to a restaurant and only buy off the a la carte menu. Sounds good? Not everything is offered there. You want steak? Order steak. It's not a la carte. Tacos are. Eat tacos. But a buffet for a flat fee means you can try the steak, the tacos, and the fish, and you get to eat as much as you want. Want crab legs? Pay extra. Life is simple. You guys make it complicated.
First of all, to which look, you want to make it simple? Let's make it simple. Every study of the industry has agreed that if we went to a la carte pricing, you would pay more and get less. The moment I heard that, I was on team buffet everything. But maybe,
you want to know what?
Go ahead.
I'm actually glad this came up because I am sick and tired of complicated metaphors. They really are just annoying. Nobody learns anything.
What are they like?
And at the end of it, you want to know what they're like? They're like a clown balancing a Perrier bottle upon his broken nose. Because the nose is broken, not by the bottle, but by the force of gravity, which is represented by the windbagginess of people who use complicated metaphors.
I'm so glad we're on the same page.
So that's the buffet. Sorry.
Hey, man, if you guys want to chime in, write us directly at cordkillers@gmail.com. But first, more importantly, we got to find out, Justin, where can everybody see you?
Justin R. Young on Twitter, Night Attack on Tuesdays. Everything that I do happens on diamondclub.tv. And I love you.
Yeah, take that to the bank and have a laugh at your love.
Cordkillers.com to find the episodes, find the subscription links. Cordkillers@gmail.com, as Brian said. And of course, we are live on diamondclub.tv at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern every Monday. We'll see you there. Doom, 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 doom.
Wow.